Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers Fuck, ow, no. Sorry, I have something in my eye. Take this off. Oh, it's beauty, because today we're talking about beholders!
I was just about oh god. I was literally gonna go, is it beauty, Martin? Is there beauty in your eye? Because behold, yeah, okay.
Yes, my name is Martin O'Dwyer and I'll be your host today, and joining me as always is your host Conor O'Brien. You like that one, so yeah?
I think that's my least favourite one so far.
It's absolutely my favourite though. I made myself laugh far too much writing that today.
I thought you were like, at first I was like, this is a bit, right? He's doing a bit. And then I was going to say, is it beauty? But then I'm like, no, he might have it like timed in such a way that if I interrupt him, it's going to ruin the joke, so I won't say anything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Look, I'm sure someone found it funny, right? Even if it was just me. But how's it going, man? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I had a productive morning, just going into town. I have some stuff to get for the wedding and stuff like that. Pants are really difficult to buy for me, Martin. It's a whole thing.
Oh, what with you being an ent and all?
Well, yes, being an ent. An ent with a rather large arse. So, a rather large trunk, if you will.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, no, I have... I can find pants that fit me so well in the leg and everything, and here's the thing, like when you're buying suit pants versus when you're buying like jeans, right? This you can buy them the same size, but they do not have the same fit because my jeans are like stretch skinny, so they have like give to them.
Yeah.
And like suit pants absolutely have zero give. They might as well be made of steel.
Like really brittle steel.
Just really brittle steel. So that was the whole thing. Then I went into town and I got food for lunch, and I was really full after. I got chippy chicken. And my God, I was so full after. I felt like I was looking to keel over.
Yeah, for people who are not from the very specific area of Ireland that we're from, chippy chicken's a place that'll cut up a chicken Kiev over a bunch of French fries and garlic sauce and cheese, and it's lovely.
I got mine with Chipotle.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah. How are you?
Oh no, I'm good. Sadly, did not get to play D&D. Well, I got to play D&D. Did not get to run D&D this week for a second week running, because once again, COVID has hit my D&D party. Last week,
both our D&D parties actually.
Yeah,
because
actually,
your game you're running, and then the game you and I, my game that you play in, both, like, we had to do our session virtually this week. And then your other game got cancelled.
Yeah. Like previous week it was 2 party members, and then we were like, okay, next week I'll get it done, and I actually wrote some really cool stuff. I made a new vestige that I'm very, very proud of. And yeah, then I was like, right, ready, we're good to go, and I was like halfway through writing the last part of the session that I needed to write for the following day, and I just get a message going, hey guys, sorry, one of us is after getting COVID, so we'll have to skip this week. And I was like, first of all, are you okay? But secondly, I was also like, oh man, I'm kind of sickened, but like at least I can make it even better now. I have more time to write. Like, I have an entire other week to put into this, and I can do some really cool stuff. So, you know, it'll come back around and it'll be good. But like, yeah, a bit of a bummer. But
I always
very cool stuff to play in D&D this week.
I always have the best of intentions when we can't do D&D for whatever reason, whether it's like scheduling or anything like that. And I'm like, can't play this week. And I'm like, no worries. And I always say, like, don't worry, guys. That just gives me more time to plan. I probably put in less time over 2 weeks than I do in 1 week.
Because 2 weeks you feel like you have the time.
Don't ask me the maths of that.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I think I just think there's way more time than there is. And then I leave it all to the last couple of days. And then I'm like, oh God. And then I end up just doing like a bunch of quick notes that I can like reference. I'm like, okay, this is a loose structure and I'll go with that. So yeah, I best laid plans.
Yeah. I totally get you though, because like, the amount of times where I'm like sitting down and I'm like, right, because I have like a whiteboard over there, and I like write like I'll be like this week's session, and like write a bullet point list of like things I need to get done for that, or anything I need to write or create, which is hilarious actually, because when my housemate came in to talk to me, when Mike came in to talk to me last night before we went to the cinema, he leant right up against it, not seeing basically the structure of the next week's session that he'll be a part of. And then also wiped about half it off the board with his jacket. And I couldn't say anything because I would have drawn attention to the plans for what's coming in the next session. It was like, just started looking back and forth between the two of them, trying not to say anything. But it'll be really fun. It's the big one. It's the big end of the arc culmination of everything. Yeah. Like all the mad stuff has really been happening now, and like it's as they say, put up or shut up time. I think that's it, or is it not up or shut up? Not up or shut up. That's the one. Yeah.
Not up or shut up. I think that was from Zombieland. Yes.
Oh my god. I couldn't have told you where that was from.
Tallahassee in Zombieland. Yeah.
I really need to watch the second one of those actually. But yeah, it was.
It's pretty good. It's a good laugh, you know.
So DMing for me not the most productive week just because I didn't get to do anything, but I did, like I said, it made really fun, really cool vestige that I'm sure one of my players is going to love. And yeah, I just got to write a lot of cool stuff, and kind of like, I suppose a lot of the time I do a bit more mental planning than like actual written plans, you know. I'll do like a bullet point thing, but then like if I'll have ideas for a certain scenario to go, I'll just write like the bare bones of the scenario and trust myself to let that little bit of text remind me of what I was thinking about earlier, and then I just out. Yeah. But really cool sessions in your campaign as well. Well, our campaign, I suppose, but easier, less confusing if I say your campaign.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Conor blew us up this week.
I blew you guys up, and a whole house around you.
Yeah.
You guys finally rallied some allies from around the Kingdom of Redalia, and you're going to make a push on the city of Temerai to try and retake it from the Empire. And you guys successfully kind of navigated like the political side of things, where you made some promises were made to certain factions and stuff like that, and you came out the other side of it, fairly well rounded and with a good force behind you. The problem was is that there was an infiltration, if you will, on that was listening in on all those meetings, and the bad guy, the head of the Imperial forces in Temerai, Grand Inquisitor Lukasz Davalkios, was spying on you this entire time, and as a result he heard all these plans, and when you guys were like, we're gonna take the city back, he was like, cool, we're barely gonna be here, because he knew you couldn't win against a force of that size. So why commit your forces if you're just gonna end up losing them anyway? So he kind of pulled back, and he's thinking long term. He's thinking, look, at some point we'll come back and retake this, but right now there's no point in fighting a battle we know we're going to lose. However, he did hear some specific parts of your plans, namely how you guys are going to go to the Duke's Manor, which is currently being used by the Imperial Governor, and kidnap both him and this imposter princess. I realize that for us this makes sense, but for anyone who's like listening to like, there's like, okay, there's a Grand Inquisitor, and then there's like a governor, and also a duke, and then also an imposter princess and a resistance. So there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it's complex.
It's complex. But then you guys went into the house, you snuck in, and went into the office, and there was a mage there, kind of just to wait for you guys to come. And as soon as you guys arrived, he was like right on time, disappeared out, and then the whole house just exploded. And you guys were left in the rubble. And I did a cool thing, which I was quite proud of.
That was really cool, to be fair. I actually did think that was very cool.
So what I did was I had each of you roll a d8, and then a lot of you rolled quite low, which I think you thought was bad initially, but actually the lower you roll, the better in this case.
Because whenever any mystery mechanics like these come up, I always have I can kind of try and gauge, because I rolled twice. I rolled once for me and once for Frost. And I got like a 1 on Frost. No, I got a 1 on my die, and I got like a 7 on Frost's die. And I was like, okay, one of my characters is fine.
So the mechanic was basically when the house blew up, I said roll a d8 and add 8 to it, and that will determine the DC athletics or strength check you need to clamber out from underneath the rubble that has fallen around you. Unsurprisingly, the 2 barbarians got out immediately. And then while I had everyone do it once and try to make a way out in a turn, as soon as you 2 got out, you look up, and standing there across astride, is that the right word?
Yeah, astride.
this like metallic flying golden horse that breathes fire, was Lukasz Dvalkios, the Grand Inquisitor. He was also there with this other person named Captain Patara, who is the daughter of the governor, and up until this point, she's been kind of like a semi-ally to you guys. She's helped you out a couple times. You've helped her out, even though she works for the Empire, and you guys, obviously against the Empire. But this was kind of a bit of a nail in the coffin on that one, because she's there, and the Grand Inquisitor was like, you see, they just came here to either assassinate or kidnap your father. Either way, it doesn't look good. And she's like, how the fuck could you do this to me? Because that's my dad, like I thought I tried to help you multiple times, and this is how you repay me. So then she leaves, and then Lukasz is like, cool, we're gonna call in what are basically some droidekas, some destroyer droids from Star Wars. And yeah, he just he went to fighting you there.
Yeah.
And you did really, really well. A couple of close calls, because he has a couple of really heavy hitting abilities, and so does his mount. His mount is a flame breath ability. It's quite powerful.
The mount definitely did more damage to me.
Yeah. It has that has a, I think it's either a 5/6 or a 6 recharge on that, like a dragon would have.
Yeah.
But it's like 66 fire damage. It's hefty, like, and none of you have fire resistance. So yeah, he was breathing fire and hitting you with the orbs. The droideka things have like shrapnel blasters. They can just shoot fragments of metal.
Were they homebrew, actually?
No, they are Gearforge keepers from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount.
Ah, okay, cool.
If you remember during Campaign 2 of Critical Role, when they were, I think it was at Hupperduke, there was a thing they had to go and fight a huge orb.
The Bad Penny. The Bad Penny. Yeah.
The one I got inspired to do Bad Penny for. Yeah. That was basically that's that exact stat block is in the book.
No, they're pretty cool.
But I thought they seemed kind of cool, and I mostly picked them because they had ranged attacks. They have an ability to shoot a bolt, like a javelin almost at you, as well as having their big cone effect as well.
I found that with a lot of creatures, Mercer designs, are that there won't ever be a creature that's just ranged or just melee. Like they'll always usually have a way to get at the players, both either up close or from afar, unless he like has specifically designed it not to. I find, but like the vast majority, like, because I've used a decent amount of his creatures throughout my campaign, and like usually I'm like, they always usually have like one really nasty melee attack, probably with some like elemental type damage on it, and then there'll always be like if they're like a heavy melee hitter, they'll probably have like either a recharge ranged attack or like a recharge AoE effect, like the Aeorian nullifier.
Yeah.
They're really fun. I love this.
No, I agree. I think honestly, I feel like that's just good. That's just good. I feel like something that gets left out an awful lot, or that we don't see as often, is ranged characters. I feel like there's far more. I mean, which kind of makes sense, I guess, because there's far more monsters that are just going to bite or claw or club you to death than there is monsters who are going to pick up a bow or throw a rock or something like that. But realistically, I think like good game design would be that if you're going to build a monster stat block, give it something that is ranged and something that even if it's like primarily a melee class, give it just something it can do if it's not able to move or it's not able to get close enough or something like that. At least it can do something with its turn. But yeah, definitely not. So yeah, that's why I picked those guys, because we have like two of the I suppose 5 party members if you include your dog Frost. There's 3 that are melee and then 2 that are like ranged. And one of the ranged is Aerith, who has crazy ridiculous stealth, so just disappears and is hiding constantly, and he's part rogue. And the other one is a warlock sorcerer combo, which is Arkham, who has a flying broom, so he's almost always out of reach. So I have 2 characters I have a really hard time getting to. And you guys as the barbarians, and actually it kind of works out really well. As from you wouldn't think a party that is 2 barbarians, a blood hunter, like a ranged blood hunter, and then a warlock sorcerer combo would be a really concise class. But you guys have a good back line and a good front line. It works, like, yeah.
No, it like I actually do really like that now, that like We do have that. That's a really good split that we have, where like it's just, if you want to hit something, the only thing you can hit are really the barbarians. Like,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you guys are doing like really serious damage in the front line, and then the guys are hanging back and doing really serious damage from range. And like, there's even like some things where like I will want to attack your whole front line, but because you're playing the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, it's not economically sound for me to attack Wabu because all the damage is halved or it's a disadvantage or whatever if you've hit it previously. So there's loads of stuff like that where like I like realistically, if I was really like trying to like break it down and trying to find the code to defeat the party, it would be go for you first as much as possible, then move on to Wabu. Although I say that, and then I'm like, you know,
because he can't die anymore.
But he's a zealot barb, so he's damn near. But that's the thing, actually. Yeah,
he's almost almost impossible to kill now, and then we get one more level, and he doesn't die.
Yeah, I would have to like, it'd be insanely hard for me to kill him with the. He's like, he will be 14 levels into zealot barb really soon. But then the thing is as well, the other two then, because one is a broom and one is just a rogue who can dash as a bonus action.
Can also fly if it's dark.
It can fly if it's dark. The two of them move so goddamn fast. If for whatever reason I did happen to kill the two frontline people, they'd just bamf out, and there's no way I could conceivably catch them unless I had a crazy fast creature.
Feels terrible, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just means I gotta try harder. Every creature now has haste cast on it.
Oh god, that's fine. That's fine. That includes the barbarians because we're creatures. Okay, I suppose we should probably actually talk about beholders.
Yes, do that.
Yeah. Okay. So today we're going to talk about beholders because beholders are, I would say, probably like they're not in the title like dragons are. But like literally, they're an original D&D monster. They're in every single edition, and they're on multiple books. Like they are.
I wouldn't say that they're the most iconic monster because dragons.
Yes.
But I would say that they are a very close second because they're so innately D&D. Dragons are in a lot of stuff. Dragons are in Game of Thrones, and dragons are in like that really cool racing show I talked about before. Was it called Dragon Racers? I think it's.
Oh yeah, I think it was literally that.
Yeah. And dragons are in a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
But beholders are very innately and specifically D&D.
Yeah. I actually have a little bit of back. Oh, we can get into it. But yeah, they're like very specifically D&D. And what I love now is since I started playing D&D, like beholders just show up in stuff like randomly. Like they'll show up in like a cutaway or something, or like. I think I was watching like an old episode of Family Guy or something, and like it was like the cutaway joke was it was him going to where he kept all his like porn mags, and he was like going down through all these things, and I think like a door opened or something, and there was like a beholder turned around with all the eye stalks up, and he was like, "Hey Steve," he was like, "Oh hey Peter," like, and then he like walked past him or something, and like I think they've shown up in like Futurama. I have like very vague memories of seeing them show up in like so much different media throughout my life before I knew what they were.
There's something I'm just looking at it here because I just typed in Beholder Futurama because I knew there was a Beholder reference. Mostly because I know that I'm pretty sure Matt Groening is a big D&D nerd.
They also did a D&D episode of Futurama.
They did. Was that the one
which was great actually?
Was that the one where Lita was a centaur?
Yeah, it was both a D&D episode and a Lord of the Rings parody because Fry had the ring.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, they're so. I think again, dragons more recognizable, more iconic in general. But if we're talking about like specific D&D monsters, like things that don't appear elsewhere, Beholder is absolutely top.
Yeah. And the reason they don't actually appear elsewhere is because they were specifically created for D&D. A little fun story I heard. I think it was probably either, I can't remember exactly what it was either WebDM or no, do you know what it was? It was the patron saint of the show, Matt Colville. And he was talking about like monsters and stuff like that in one of his videos, but he offhandedly mentioned that so like apparently like a lot of the monsters from the original D&D bestiary, they would, if there even was one, they would have come from like Gary Gygax went down to his local like charity shop and was like looking through all the toys, and he would just find random toys that looked cool and pick them up and be like ooh, and make a stat block for that.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I love that idea. But with the Beholder, that was a little more intention behind it. I have it here. Yeah, so the Beholder was actually, it was created for D&D by a guy called Terry Kuntz, and it was then detailed by Gary Gygax. So Terry would have drawn it, Gary would have done the stat block for it. Then is what I think that means by
Yeah.
detailed, I'm guessing. But like that's why it's like, that's why you see it nowhere else, and why it's so like intrinsically a D&D monster, because it's one of the few ones that was intentionally designed as a D&D monster rather than just something maybe he like picked up and was like, oh, this off-brand toy looks kind of cool, let's make a
Yeah.
stat block for it and call it a I don't know, a Chuzbazzer. Uh,
Chess wasn't.
yeah, but that's why you don't see it. That's why you literally don't see it anywhere. And there's something, I think there's something really special about that, and that like, yeah, because D&D is such a, it's like a pulp hodgepodge of like so many different like cultures, fairy tales and horror stories, and then like literary influences like, well, obviously Tolkien, and like other
Primarily
stuff.
Tolkien.
And then like when you bring in stuff like the Monk, you're getting stuff from like kind of like 1970s kind of kung fu films that are coming through, because that's kind of the vibe of
Yeah.
most Monk stuff, is like that the old school like kung fu movies. And just to have this like properly like, and I would say like properly iconic, and it definitely deserves that, just that adjective, like that title rather, iconic monster as the Beholder, to be like a wholly original thing. I think that's like so good, and like particularly because they are in every single edition, and they are feared in every single edition.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're one of my favorite monsters, just because I feel like it's a bit like a dragon. We talked about dragons before in our dragon episode. Feel free to check it out. When you put a dragon into the game, there's just something about that monster that people go, it's like, oh, it's the thing, it's the reason. It's almost like, even if the main purpose of your campaign is not to fight and kill a dragon, putting a dragon into the campaign, immediately it's like, oh, that's the thing. That's the thing
Yeah.
we're all here to hear about and play the game for and stuff like that. And I think Beholders have a similar thing. Like, an arc or a campaign is like epic when you put this epic monster into it. It's like you don't put a Beholder, you don't throw a Beholder into like I don't know, a random thieves guild hideout or something like that. Unless he's like the head of the thieves.
I was just about to say, you're kind of describing Xanthar there.
A little bit, like, yeah. But what I mean is, like, it's not. Xanathar is quite epic though in scale.
He is, yeah.
But what I mean is, like, if you're in a small like local town and stuff like that, Beholders are a creature that, like, they're so epic in scale that if you're going to put them into a campaign, it's going to be a pivotal part of that campaign.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like, it's, I think it's because like they're not just like an iconic monster, but they're like an iconic villain of D&D as well. Like,
Yeah.
like when you think about like the like specifically like the big bad monsters in D&D, you're thinking like your dragons, your Tarrasques, your liches. I would also put, yeah, giants maybe as well, but probably to a lesser extent. But I would say the Beholder is up there with those like big the big bads of D&D, because like there's, it's because the Beholder, I think, is between its, we can talk about its features, but between its like, it's got the anti-magic cone straight up front, which can just like stops your spells, switches off your magic items. If you've class features that are magical, they don't work either. And then so it just completely equalizes the playing field, but it doesn't do that. But it does that by bringing everybody way down into the basement. Like you know what I mean? Like I suppose at least like the melee classes can like just like punch and cut things with blades and stuff. But like your spellcaster's kind of like, well, I guess I'm kind of shit out of luck, really, aren't I?
There is like tactic to how you can use the anti-magic cone and stuff like that. Like. It's actually, Beholder is probably the only monster I can think of off the top of my head where the direction it is facing matters, because most of like facing rules are a thing you can do, but they're an optional rule in D&D. So the facing thing, like I think I'd have to look them up. I think the facing rules work in such a way that if you're facing this person, let's say you have like two people flanking and they're both facing into the monster in the middle, that's fine, you have flanking. But then if you have immediately on the other side of that person, on the outer right side, have a monster and then another person, they're not flanking that person because they're not facing that monster and causing threat to it and stuff like that.
Getcha.
So there is rules for facing. We don't use them, but they are there. They're an optional rule. But Beholders have, you need to know what direction they're facing, because you need to know where their anti-magic cone is going at all times. For two reasons. One, it might be affecting the players, because if you have spellcasters, particularly if they group up, you're going to want to make sure you capture 2 or more spellcasters in the cone, meaning that they are not casting spells until they leave that area. And 2, you need to be aware of it because the anti-magic cone applies to everything, which means that like a beholder's eye ray will not be able to shoot someone that is in that cone. So the cone is meant to like debilitate like casters and stuff that they can't possibly use any of their good spells. But then while doing that, you're going to want to be looking the big eye this way, and all the other little eyes are going to want to be zapping all the melee fighters and the archers and stuff like that are all everywhere else in the room.
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the things I probably like the most about people. Like I haven't personally had a chance to run one in my campaign yet. I have not, like as you said, they're like a very serious threat and a very epic scale monster, and I don't just want to throw one in there for the sake of it. I have ideas of where I could maybe put one, particularly in some of the areas my players haven't yet explored. But like I would want to do it justice and give it the proper scale and level of network and connections that beholders tend to have. Yeah. But like I love that they enforce a tactical playstyle. Like you cannot just run up and go blah, 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 like I hit it. And like I'm gonna cast something, like the party has to spread out, they have to split up. If like admittedly you're like if your barbarian with a great axe can still go up and smash that great axe into its stupid face as many times as it wants, but if he wants to use his like crazy stormborn great axe or whatever the hell, he has to go around the other side, smash, now I hit way harder. And like I like that. Like it's not the hugest level of tactics or whatever, but there is still that level of like I actually have to consider my actions here. And I like any monster that gives a player like, no, I have to think about what I'm doing here, or else it's not gonna work as well as I want it to. And then as well, just like it's so responsive too. I love like both as a player and as a DM having lots of options and ways to respond to things. And like with a beholder, the eye rays, like the way that you can be like, okay, I'm good, 3 eye rays, this ray, it like innervation ray, like whatever, like all of those different eye rays, and including the disintegration ray, like they're all on their own, they're all scary and kind of intimidating. But once you where you know it's like, oh, this is random, you like the DM could roll. Oh no, sorry, is it random? You pick.
I've always kind of done it randomly, whereby with ways you shoot 3 rays. I'm reading off the thing. Eye rays. They both shoot 3 rays of the following magical eye rays at random. Reroll duplicates, choosing 1 to 3 targets it can see within 120 feet. Technically, meaning you could shoot all 3 rays at one person if you wanted. But yeah, what I'll usually do, because one thing I love about beholders, right? So yes, they are very, very tactical, right? Because you need to think about where you're facing, who you're hitting, and can I use my telekinesis to push this fighter far away so they don't get attacks on me?
You nearly did it to me.
Can I use this eye ray basically to just pin down a magic user who over there, so like they cannot like. And the thing of it is, when you think about it like from a geometric standpoint, right? If the beholder's in the center of the room and they have this big cone, because it's a big cone, it's like 150 foot.
Yeah.
So it's enormous. So you would have to get in closer to try and like make the circumference shorter for you to curve out and get out of that cone. Which means that as soon as you get in closer, you're sitting ducked. Like, if it does decide, that's fine. You move out of that thing, you're right in plain sight now for me to hit you under the eye rays. There. But so the one thing I really love about their rays, though, a few things actually I like about these, but the main one I'm talking about now is that I like to relinquish all responsibility for what happens in the beholder encounter. I like to. They're very tactical, and I will always play them smart, because unless there's some reason that I think they're not a smart beholder. But I will always try to play them tactically. But I like to relinquish all responsibility. I like anything in D&D where it's like, okay, you guys are totally at the mercy of the dice now. I'm going to play this monster as I think it should be played. But like if for some reason I roll a 9 and one gets disintegration ray, I'm not gonna. And the thing is, but what I'll do is I will pick the target first, then I'll roll the dice. So I'm not even like trying to. I'm not rolling 3 of them and going charm, fear, and then disintegration, because I need to pick who gets the disintegration. I don't want that responsibility. So I will just roll, and I'll be like, okay, Lug, you're up first. Roll, you get 3. Fear Ray, make a save, blah blah blah. So yeah, I will do it like that, and that's something I love about Beholders is that they have a lot of really cool abilities as a result of having like 10 different IRAs. But I never have to worry about
Responsibility.
about responsibility. Yeah, pretty much.
No, I like that actually. I think that's a good way to do it. Because I think even if you're not in like if you did it the other way, where you were like okay, like whatever, like like fear disintegrate, like whatever you've got, the third one's disintegrate, and you're going okay, and you don't pre-pick the people, you just roll the raise. You're like the last one's disintegrate. Even if you don't want to, subconsciously you may not choose someone who is the best target for the disintegrate ray. Because like in your like you might substantially be like I might kill them, so I'm gonna choose this person instead. Do you know there might just be that kind of like hesitance, but like the way you do it is like oh shit, look, your number came up. It's not me.
Yeah, and like there is that. You could definitely play it the other way as well, because for example, I don't know, just for talk's sake, who is it? I'm trying to think of different things. Okay, here we go. So number 7 is Sleep Ray, right? If you have an elf in the party, nothing's going to happen there because they're immune to magical sleep.
Yeah.
So if you pick the elf character in the party and you roll, you get a 7. Let's say you do it once and the elf is completely unaffected, and in the next round the beholder tries it again and gets another 7. At that time I'd be like, okay, the beholder knows not to target you with this one. So at that point I would definitely choose someone else. I'd be like, who hasn't he hit with this yet? Who's like the next nearest person? Oh, the human barb is right there. Let's try him and try to put him to sleep instead. And then instead I would just be like, now the second die roll is going to be you, elf, and then we'll see what happens with them.
Look, disintegrate.
Yeah, disintegrate. Death ray, 10d10 necrotic damage.
Oh god, man. Oh, it just makes me shiver hearing it, like 10d10 necrotic damage. Oh.
Don't actually. I mean, people talk about disintegrate an awful lot. The necrotic one's worse. They're both dex saves. The disintegrate is 10d8 force, but it's 10d10 necrotic on the death ray, and both of them kill you outright. The disintegrate one will disintegrate you to a pile of dust if it reduces you to 0. The necrotic one just kills you outright if you get reduced to 0 hit points. Both are just as lethal.
No, I would argue the disintegrate is more intimidating because you can't come back from a disintegrate.
You can't revivify someone's ash pile.
Yeah, because unless you have a magic hoover, like.
Yeah. That's some genie in Aladdin stuff where he just hoovers you up with a small hand vac kind of thing, and then just like pops you back out in one piece.
Pours you out into like one of those like Play-Doh extrusion molds, and just goes.
Yeah, it just like cranks it out. It goes, and you're like fully formed again. Yeah, I think there's so many options you can do with a beholder. It's a great thing. Beholders are kind of like, I almost kind of wish dragons. I talked about this before. I really love dragons. Dragons are great. They're so epic and so iconic. But all dragon fights tend to be very, very similar because all dragons are very, very similar. They all have tail attacks, bite attacks, claw attacks, wing attacks. They have a breath weapon of some kind. Typically fight for presence. They're typically resistant to the type of damage that they do with a breath weapon and nothing else. Whereas I'm like, what if you had a dragon who's like like a volcanic dragon? Instead of a fire, you're like volcanic. So not only is your like breath weapon doing like fire damage because of that, but what if you're breathing like toxic boiling sulfur? So it's also poison damage as well, like, you know. So you do poison and fire, which to be fair are two of the most resistant types of damage in the entire game.
I thought we were going to go like poison and bludgeoning for like volcanic rock. Like a breath
that actually would be really, really cool as well. Or if instead of it being a cone or a line, the dragon just goes like, okay, pick 3 spots within 100 feet, and everything within 20 feet of that will he'll just basically shoot a ball of magma, and it will hit the ground and splatter everywhere. And that could be bludgeoning and fire damage, you know. And you do, and like that shake things up in magma. Every time. But that could be kind of cool though. Yeah. I like that beholders have that they are. If you look at Volo's Guide is such a good book. If you look at Volo's Guide, they actually have a specific section called variant abilities. And that gives you other options you could potentially use in place of some of them. Like for example, you have a charm ray here, is one of them. That's number one on the table. You could sub that in for a banishment ray, or you can sub it in for a confusion ray, and you're basically just subbing in the spell effect in place of that. I think when I had you guys fighting it, I swapped out a few of them. I don't think I included the disintegration. I think I might have put a chain lightning one in there instead. There's one there for Enervation Ray, which I think is also quite cool, but you could also sub that in for Create Undead, which I think could be really, really cool, particularly if you're running a Death Tyrant, which is the undead variant of a... And also, that's another thing, there's a bunch of different types of Beholder, even though they're not all Beholders, technically.
Do you have a favourite Beholder kin? Just seeing as you bring it up.
Ooh...
I love the Gazer, and it's nothing to do with its stat block or anything. It's just because in its art it looks so I keep nearly swearing. It looks so goddamn dumb. Like, it just looks really stupid. It looks
really derpy.
It looks really, really stupid in the art, and I love it.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly with the Gazer...
oh, look at you, my little derpy one-eyed boy.
So actually, I can't remember. Actually, Gazers are hilarious, because I think... you could probably strip them down. Actually, no, half.
You threw a Gazer at us before as well, didn't you?
Sorry?
I think you threw a Gazer at us early on in campaign 1 too.
Oh.
It was the one we had to...
It was
Spectator.
A Spectator, yeah. No, Gazers are... Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so here's what... There's a subcategory or subparagraph in their description that says nuisance pet. And it says, a Gazer can't speak any languages, but it can approximate mimicking words and sentences in a high-pitched, mocking manner. Oh. Have you ever seen Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan?
No, because I've literally heard nothing but bad things about it, and I don't like Hulk Hogan.
Oh god, okay, I think we should watch it sometime. I haven't seen it in years, and I guarantee you it does not hold up, but I think it'd be hilarious.
It's regularly cited as one of the worst movies with a wrestler in it. Which is also most of Hulk Hogan's movies.
I loved it as a kid, but it is a ridiculous movie.
I know, I still love Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain when he shows up. Because, like, I was a kid, like, we were
cover art is him holding a skateboard and the three of them are on top of it.
Like, we were like the right age for like late 90s wrestling boom, and so I was a massive wrestling fan, and Hulk Hogan was kind of back then, and I was also doing karate at the time, so like High Noon at Mega Mountain, where it was 3 ninja kids and Hulk Hogan fighting bad guys. I was in. It was Christmas for me, man.
But so there's a scene in that movie where there's these two. The idea of it is he's like he's either a bounty hunter or some sort of like galactic mercenary or something like that.
Suburban Commando, if I remember rightly, is I think he's like a bounty hunter that takes a job as a nanny, isn't that it?
No. So what happens?
Or am I thinking of No, I'm thinking of Mr. Nanny.
You are thinking Mr. Nanny. No, in this one he's fighting this like galactic corporation kind of like dictatorship.
He is. He's from like Mars or some. Yeah, you're right.
And he comes down to Earth, and Earth is like regular 1980s Earth. It's like there's nothing sci-fi about Earth. And he comes down and he gets some human clothes and he's trying to blend in because he's like, I better lay low for a while until they stop looking for me. But they find out where he is, and they send these 2 bounty hunters. These like really rough looking dudes who never talk, and they wear like black trench coats, and they have really scary guns, and they've no problem blasting people or freezing people solid with like this ice ray that they have. And then it's not until like the very final fight where like he like punches one of them, or one of them has him at their mercy. He's like they're about to like kill him or something, and he's and his name is Shep Ramsey in it. It's his character's name. And one of them just goes and turns to him, and they speak, and their voice comes out as, "You're a dead man, Ramsey."
I was wondering how this was connecting to Beholders and that. Okay, yeah.
So it's a really stupid moment, and then he's just like, "No wonder you guys never talk."
Is that the bit where he lifts the guy up and he's like, "Dookie"?
No, that's a different movie. I'm pretty sure it's a different movie. That's a different movie, I think.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, sorry. So the whole thing of I always picture them like, because they can't speak. Sorry, that was a weird tangent.
It was such a weird tangent, but it's okay.
I don't think we've done a Hulk Hogan tangent before.
There's a reason for that.
But yeah, so I like the idea that these guys can't speak,
Yeah.
and, which is very different from like regular beholders who are like super intelligent and stuff like that. But I like the idea of them being little kind of like spies or drones that are sent around to spy on behalf of the big beholder, and they kind of just like gently hover through a town or through Waterdeep or through Baldur's Gate, and they're kind of go and they're just talking gibberish, and they're kind of mumbly, almost like in Empire Strikes Back. You know, the drones that they shoot down at the Hoth, and I'm talking to the wrong person.
I was really trying to remember, man. I'm sorry.
I'm sure people who know that the drones make this kind of. I don't know. They kind of it's like beeping. It sounds like a language. Maybe it's a language. Maybe it's like droid.
You sound like you sound like Nibbler from Futurama to me.
Actually, a Nibbler voice would be so funny from these guys as well.
But like when you said that thing, what they make like just a high pitched kind of droning sound, I just thought of, you know, Dumb and Dumber, the most annoying sound in the world.
Oh my god, yeah.
I just love the idea of a gazer with the mentality of Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber.
Oh man, yeah. I think they're fun. Actually, they're a half challenge rating. I think you could maybe. Now they have a couple different eye rays, which might make it a little bit OP. Not OP, but more powerful than a standard companion. But like if you wanted to play like a ranger who was like an Aasimar or a Gith who like fell to Earth or fell to your world, and like here's my gazer companion or something like that, and they're like a Beastmaster, I think that'd be kind of cool. Or if you wanted to play a warlock,
I was gonna say like an old one warlock, and your patron gifts you a gazer to keep an eye on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool.
I would just love to have just like a tiny little derpy beholder following the party around, just constantly like recording stuff.
Yeah. They do look really stupid in art. I love them.
I absolutely adore them. But yeah, there's other types. We fought a Death Tyrant in our first campaign, who was a major antagonist for my character anyway, and he was really cool. What was it? General Gore? I think was his
General
name?
Gore. I think I called him.
By the way, great name for a Death Tyrant.
So the idea I wanted to use something. Here's the thing, right? I think at the time I was doing campaign 1, the Critical Role campaign 1 was maybe ongoing as well. It was. We hadn't campaign 2 had not started. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have at least 2, if not 3 people in this party who watched Critical Role go through their campaign with a thing, and I want to do something a little bit different.
Yes.
So. And there was a big undead arc ongoing, so I'm like, cool, I'll just incorporate this undead arc or this undead beholder into that. And the idea of him was that there was this kind of like ghoul empire that lived underground, and you know, it was a little bit like the Darkspawn in Dragon Age, where like they live underground and they just build up their numbers over the course of decades or centuries, and then eventually they'll try to retake the surface ever again. I think I called it mine the Scourge or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And this was a really, really big one, and not only was it just that they were coming to the surface, but in this case, General Gore had taken command of them. So they not only had huge numbers, but he was like intelligent and directing them in a very tactical manner. And he was quite cool. I had him show up a couple times, just like watching, as an observer, hovering just at a distance and stuff like that. And you guys fought him. When you guys fought him, and this will just be testament to how OP you guys were in campaign 1. When you fought him, I had you fight him and an Athropol, which is the fetal undead.
The really
Titan.
messed up looking undead that everybody knows. The one, Jesus.
It's in Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes.
I had you guys fighting, and your nightmares. And the thing is, right? So 2 things, right? 1, the Death Tyrant's eye ray, or cone, it has an ability where it doesn't affect your magic, but you cannot heal while you're in that. Nothing can regain hit points for you while you're in it. So there was a moment where you were quite low on health, you drank a potion, and I told you nothing happened, and you were like, oh my god. And then I think someone else tried to cast a spell at some point, and I was like, yeah, you cast a spell, and it just fizzles. No health is regained. And you guys are kind of panicking at that point.
So as you do.
As you do. It's a really cool ability, and I really like that Death Tyrants have this kind of. It makes sense thematically for them. But he had the cone, but also the room you guys are in, the Athropol was at the center of it. The Athropol is the same ability, but in a radial effect, and the room was exactly that size. So as long as you guys were in the room, you were not going to regain health, and like you actually got dropped to 0 at one point, and people were panicking and all that, and luckily someone thought to drag you out of the room and into the hallway.
Yeah.
I can't remember who had the idea, but someone had the idea anyway. And as soon as it got you into the hallway, I think someone slammed a potion into you, and it was like, you heal, and they're like, okay, we can't heal in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I immediately charged back into the room.
And you immediately charged back in, yeah.
I also didn't use the super OP sword that you gave me that session that you were expecting me to use that session in that fight.
Yeah, because this all took place in like a tower.
Yeah.
That had risen up out of a fissure in the ground, and at the top of the tower was like the evil paladin turned demon that killed your parents and your order and stuff like that. And then the other one was at the bottom in the basement was this General Gore, who was building an undead titan, which was the Atropol, to like, you know, use as a weapon of war. And I didn't direct you on which one to go for first, but you guys went up, and I kind of thought you'd go downstairs first, but you ended up going upstairs first, and I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. And you got this really badass sword off of the guy called Judgment. But yeah, you didn't take the time to attune to it. You were just like, cool, let's go downstairs to the basement straight away.
I didn't think we had time. I was like, because we were like, there's a war going on, and I was like, shit, I really want it. The sword is really cool. It just beat the shit out of me, but I really don't have the time to do it. But General Gore was really cool. I still like the fact that I still remember its name and that it wasn't anywhere near a major character. I think kind of speaks volumes, because it's probably at least 4 years since that.
Yeah, oh man. Pandemics, am I right?
I was just thinking I was about to but yeah, it's you can see there, if you do it right, they're very, very, very memorable, and that's kind of why I haven't done one yet. I think I'm intending to do another campaign once this one ends, and I think I definitely I'm gonna do like a list of monsters I want to use and like plan out where they are and stuff, like, because this campaign I did a lot of like flying by the seat of my pants and just seeing what had fit the area, and I kind of
I do a lot of that as well, to be fair.
I think that does have its benefits, because I found stuff I wouldn't have found normally just by looking through areas. But at the same time, like, I think with stuff like we're saying, like with your dragons, with your beholders, maybe like definitely with something like, geez, if I ever wanted to use a Tarrasque, like those are things that require proper. We should actually do an episode on the Tarrasque someday.
I don't know if there's enough to talk about on the Tarrasque. It's big. If you cast magic on it, you're stupid. That's about it. Just for context for anyone who's like, what does that mean, Connor? It has a thing where like it's just immune to magics under a certain level.
It reflects them back at you.
I think I don't know, does it always do that, or if like ones below a certain level do, or there's something like that. But basically it's one of these creatures where like it's not only really resistant to magic, if it like does it do a thing where like it has resistance to the or advantage on the save, and if it saves it also reflects it back at you? Is that what it is?
I think that might be, because isn't that,
and then I think spells of like 4th level or lower just flat out don't work on it.
Yeah
something like that. I'll check it now, I'm curious.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome.
Let's look up Tarrasques in our
Beholders episode. But while you're looking up the Tarrasque, I'm gonna have chat. But yeah, like I think that's probably another really good thing about the Beholder, is like if you want, you could almost center like a campaign around a Beholder, and then from like early levels up, once they hit a certain point, you can start feeding in lesser Beholders. Like if the big bad is going to be like a proper big scary Beholder for like, say, like your first arc or your second arc, maybe, because like you can probably put like probably the first arc, maybe the first big arc, probably like levels, I don't know, maybe like levels 5 to 10, like that kind of space. You can put the villain of that stretch of story in as a Beholder, and then leading up that you could have like you did with the General Gore, you could have like a spectator show up, and all it does is observe and report back, and then the party start noticing it more and more, and then maybe eventually they catch it and they fight it and they kill it, and then a more powerful but less so than the Beholder variant comes in, where instead of maybe a spectator, now it's a death tyrant, or it's a zombie Beholder. Maybe the zombie Beholder is the enemy of the Beholder, that is the villain of the arc that they've killed and are now they're using their body as a weapon. There's lots of really, really cool, like, and I literally just made that up as I was talking there.
You said the word Beholder an awful lot there.
Yes, I know. Behold! But yeah,
Just for clarification on the Tarask ability.
okay.
Anytime a Tarask is targeted by a magic missile spell, a line spell, or a spell that requires a ranged attack roll, roll a d6. On a 1 to 5, the Tarask is unaffected. On a 6, the Tarask is unaffected, and the effect is reflected back at the caster as though it originated from the Tarask, turning the caster into the target. So it's not even a save. It's just like a 1 in 6 chance that your own spell comes right back at you, and it's not wait. Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man. And then I think it has magic resistance then on top of that. So if it's a DC, if it's a save related spell, you have advantage on it anyway. Oh my god.
Yeah, 6 line carpet, 6 level 20 fighter archers.
Yeah, just that's exactly the tactic for it, because and here we said it a while ago. Martin. There isn't a single ranged attack on the Tarask.
That is the weakness of the Tarask.
That is the weakness of the Tarask. They have no ranged abilities. Technically, like.
But then again, it also can't be killed. It just goes to sleep.
It just goes back into like stasis or
it digs
hibernation.
It digs its way back into the center of the planet, and then goes to sleep. There's nothing you can do. But yes, the Beholder, I suppose. Then, Conor, we kind of talked about it a little already, but like running it as an intelligent monster. Like, I know a lot of DMs, and particularly like you can see it on YouTube as well. There will be a lot of videos where like, oh, how do I make my combat more interesting, or how do I make my combat more than just like my players go up and hit it with a sword, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think you can kind of get around a lot of that with Beholders, because they are an intelligent monster. Like, even it actually calls it out in the monster manual when you look at them and you read into their layers. Beholders specifically designed their layers to make it as difficult as freaking possible for people to get up on them. What they do is they carve it with their disintegration, right? And they carve it in such a way that it's a series of vertically stacking chambers that leads up to a very high vaulted ceiling where they live. So that if people actually manage to get up through the stacking layers and get to it, it just goes, okay, 300 feet in the air or 120 feet in the air or whatever, and then just
hover towards the ceiling here and I'll shoot down at you.
Yeah, so like you don't even have to be particularly intelligent with your shot selection. Just if you just read the goddamn like lore for the monster, you're like, oh, here's like 2 tactics already I can use, and that'll just make it more fun anyway. But like in terms of like running the Beholder as an intelligent monster, Conor, what kind of things would you do?
Just as a side note there, what you're saying about the book giving you information on how they act and how they behave, that's just a general big thumbs up to Rollo's Guide and why it's such a good book. That does that for all the monsters in that book, for Micflayers and gnolls and giants and everything. It gives you ideas on how to run them. If I'm running them as an intelligent monster, so there's the thing. Beholders are super paranoid. That's a whole theme with them. I don't have to be, of course. You can do what you want with them, and like I said, they're really interchangeable with all their abilities. So you can really craft a Beholder that is unique to your campaign, so that your players will be surprised if they've read the standard stat block loads in their own campaign that they're running. You can be like, disintegration ray, no thanks. It's got this other ray that's way more deadly, because that's what it needs.
More
deadly. But yes, so if you're gonna do, like I said, they're smart, they're paranoid, they're gonna want to defend themselves. All right, they're going to want to protect themselves. Like you said, some of that is in the design of their layers. So you might enter a chamber and be like, where's the next way in? Oh, it's a hole in the ceiling we need to go through. And all the walls are smooth and there's no ladders or grips or anything like that, because the Beholder doesn't need them, because they can just levitate up into the ceiling. So I'm going to make the layer challenging. I'm going to make the layer the kind of thing where like you need to get up there, and I'm not going to tell you how. And I'm not saying, oh, there's a ladder, right? This is a video game where I'm going to give you the ladder, and all you need to do is move into position. I want you guys to be like, how are you going to do it? And then one person's going to be like, I turn into a crow, and I lift the rope up to the top, and then I turn out of being a crow, and then I tie the knot, and everyone else can follow me up. It's like, great, excellent. That's really good gameplay. So their base shows intelligent design and how it defends itself. There's going to be traps, definitely a lot of traps. Because again, they want to defend themselves. I wanted to feel like it's a real. It's the challenge with a Beholder starts when you make any step to try and get to them. I like they will have multiple rings of defense, and that might even go back further than their base. Before you even get to their base, beholders will probably have people working for them, like lesser creatures, whether that's stuff like gazers who act as little scouts in the forest, so that like if you are making your way through the forest, one of them spots you, they report back, and straight away he knows you're coming. You can also do, like I said, traps. You can do intelligent design on the base. I think there's a bunch of stuff, but I think they should all probably revolve around.
Stay out of my personal space.
Stay out of my personal space. What I would do is I would basically, I'd even like maybe make like some decoy bases.
Ooh, I like that.
Like the beholder, like hey, they're intelligent, right? They're really really smart. If a beholder thinks you might be getting, coming after them, we know the beholder has this treasure we wanted, this magical item. We need to find this beholder, we need to kill them and take this magic item. The beholder's gazer hears this mission, knows you're coming first, and he thinks, okay, I don't want them finding me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna feed them false information. I'm gonna purposely send some mind controlled bandits at them. The bandits are I know they're gonna lose. They're pitiful. They're little weak little bandits, and these guys are like level 6, so they're gonna go through them like butter. And then they might keep one of the bandits alive, but all the mind control bandits have been told, if you get caught, you tell them that this is where my base is. And that's a secondary base. That's not at all the beholder's actual base.
It's actually a dragon's cave.
It's actually a dragon. There you go. That could work. Or like, actually that'd be a good idea. If the beholder had a beef with that dragon, he might be like, I'm just going to send them to my enemy, and whichever one of them loses, the beholder wins. Doesn't matter. He's got either way. One of his enemies is out of the picture. Like.
That's the D&D equivalent of like ringing up the pizza place and ordering like 30 pizzas to your neighbor's house.
It's a bunch of adventurers.
Just the idea of the beholder there, like, I'm gonna get him good. Watch this.
Yeah.
Like, mind controls 10 adventurers. Go over there and run into the cave. I don't even want you to do anything. Just run in there and annoy him.
But yeah, I think I would just play it smart. I would try something and we talked about this at the start of the podcast. Something I'm kind of not figuring out, but kind of working through, when running Grand Inquisitor Lukash Devalkios, who's a very intelligent person, is he needs to know, in order to act intelligently, you need to have facts, you need to know what's going on. So I think the beholder using spies, whether it's someone, like, it doesn't have to be someone who's mind controlled, maybe someone who's like, maybe the beholder did a favor for them at some point. Maybe the beholder's like an information broker. And at one point, the tavern owner was like, "Oh, I need to know where I can find the cure for this for my wife, or I need to know some information that's critically important." And the beholder's like, "That's perfect. I know that information. I'll give it to you in exchange for the next 5 years. Anytime I want, I can see through your eyes." And then at any time he wants, he can just tune into what's happening in the bar, and the bartender hears everything. So he's like, I can see through your eyes. And I'll just listen in. That's all I want. Pretty simple. It won't hurt you. You won't feel a thing. You won't even know I'm doing it. But for the next 5 years, that's what I'd like. And then because you're desperate, barman's desperate to get his wife's healed or something like that, cuts a deal. And then the beholder literally has eyes everywhere, which is very on brand for them. And yeah, I think if the beholder knows what's going on, if the beholder's lurking in a cave, just waiting for someone to show up and kill them, that's not a good beholder. But if the beholder is like keeping tabs on things all around them, and like, using, if it's the spell, there's a beast sense. I think it's beast sense. It's a ranger spell where you can see through the eyes of a willing beast or creature. Yeah. You could be in effect like that, where the beholder's like, oh, I can tap into any one of hundreds of people that live in the city above, all of which I've done favors for, but now I can see everything. I basically a bunch of walking security cameras. He might have dedicated spies who work for him.
Yeah. And
it's all about getting information and them wanting to be informed on what's happening so that they can stay one step ahead of it and make sure that no one can ever get the drop on them. And I would play it smart like that, and that's kind of what I'm playing to Valkyos. Like, he likes to be informed. He's always trying to stay tuned into what's happening so he can make the best decisions. And I would play the beholder like that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I associate him in my head with the phrase like 4D chess.
The Valkyos?
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, he's very much I mean he's an inquisitor. It's about knowing things. It's about being tuned into the situation. So I would play the beholder like that, and I would have innocent people who have agreed to be walking cameras. I would have dedicated spies. I would have mind controlled pawns. I'd have a bunch of stuff like that, and he'd have these different rings of defense that allow him to. It basically just walls of defense that let him keep safe in his dungeon, and then his dungeon would be trapped to hell, just be constant traps all over the place. It would be impossible to navigate because you need to go straight up or straight down in order to do so. And yeah, and he'd have like, if it was a recurring bad guy, I'd probably have him have, and you're gonna hate me for this, escape plans. I've a thing. It happened this week when you guys were fighting.
4 lightning bolts.
Yeah, it happened this week, and you guys ended up. He basically he fought, and he did fought quite well. And he got you guys quite wounded and stuff, but then he ended up just teleporting out because he's like, I'm not winning this fight, but I'll leave my machines here to do whatever damage they can, and then he'll leave. But again, that's because he's like, I'm not in this to die. Like, I'm in this to try and win. And if I'm not winning, I'll retreat and rethink the situation and come back, better next time.
Yeah.
So play your beholder smart.
Yeah, definitely do.
Make sure they know what's going on, and then they can prepare for it. I'm actually really proud of that secondary base idea. I think it's very fun.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah, absolutely. And like,
I imagine going through like a whole dungeon that takes like 2 sessions. You get to the end of it, and it's just like it's like a big stuffed pinata beholder.
Yeah.
And then, and it's just like.
Yeah, I know. I think you like
Harry Mario, the princess in another castle.
I think like you would. I'd literally have to put like you think you'd have to put like 1 or 2 like nice items in there, or like a nice bit of gold or something, because otherwise your party's just gonna fucking rage. Like, even if they're not barbarians.
You could probably do it like this is his regular secondary base, and when you get to the final room, there's other dead adventurers, and they have some gear you can pick up or something like that.
I think that's the only way you could do.
And maybe at the end of it, there's some big demon or something that the beholder's enslaved, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is my." I basically send all the people I don't want coming after me into this thing's lair, and it's just a whole like pit then full of like magical swords and armor and all sorts of stuff.
You could do like you could also even do with the beholder. You could do almost like a golem with Shelob kind of thing, where like there's a big scary beastie nearby, like a giant spider that eats everybody who comes near, and even the orcs to fight her. And like you can just like plant rumors that there's like a hoard of treasure in that cave, just so that yours stays completely safe and unbothered by. And yeah, I think as well with beholders is they tend to like split into like 2 personality types really. Either that kind of beholder where they're very much almost like a red dragon in how they act, and that they're very much the like, I am the superior, I am the top of the food chain here, I am the best possible life form in this area. Everything else is beneath me and should act and serve me as if that is. And then there's the other one that is just entire like, it's either like evil dictator. Actually, they call them eye tyrants. That's the term they call them is eye tyrants. So you got your eye tyrant who like builds the whole like galactic evil empire of like spies and slaves and serfs and all that, or you have the like insane isolationist beholder where it basically just removes itself entirely from everything and anything else because it views everything else as lesser and trash, and just like holds up in like a mountain or like an ancient tomb or somewhere with something really important and special that it considers its treasure, and it's gonna just stay there, and just they'll do the same stuff, or it'll be like loads of traps and stuff because they're still incredibly paranoid. But like, actually I just thought there was a guy in the States, I had him like in the early 2000s I think it was, or 2010s maybe, and the FBI went to raid his house for various crimes. I think it was to do with having like illegal firearms or something. But he had rigged up his whole house with like tripwires that sets off shotguns and chainsaws and all that. Like, he had literally booby trapped his whole house with like all these various guns that were hidden in panels and walls and couches and stuff that would go off if you sat down and did certain things. And he killed himself because he stopped taking a certain kind of medication he was on, and a side effect of that was sleepwalking. Yeah, and he set off on the shotguns and killed himself. But then like the FBI went in to raid the house, and they had to demolish the house in the end because they couldn't find all the guns.
Yeah.
There were still setups, and I would build a beholder setup like that. Give me like a beholder where like you take a step in and you just hear like and like 19 crossbows go off immediately. Let's go. Or like, have you ever seen like American Gods where like the Viking is in America for the first time and like walks up to the forest and looks in, and then it must have been like 60 Native Americans shot him. Like it must have been. It's like it's like James Caan and The Godfather but with arrows. Like it's brutal. But like I would love to do something like that, or like do the full like James Bond villain lair. Like that's kind of like more serious, more intimidating James Bond villain is kind of how I view Beholder. You know what I mean? Like you've got the megalomania, you've got the like I'm going to dominate these people, everything is beneath me, they can serve me, and then you've got the like, and I also have a crazy lair with all these different traps. Actually, that's probably a good thing. So like layered actions in terms of layers, I suppose we kind of already covered it, but like you can make any Beholder layer you want. Off the top of your head right now, what do you make?
Yeah.
Aside from your great like fake layer plan.
Any layer. As in where would it be situated? Like?
Yeah. Like you can put a Beholder layer anywhere. Where would it be, and how would it?
It's a domed bubble at the bottom of the sea.
Oh, I like it. Oh, I like it a lot. And you could even have like an eye symbol on it. I would just
even better. It's the Gungan city from Naboo in Phantom Menace.
I think I've seen that one.
All the floating orange orbs.
Oh yeah, I totally have seen that one. Yeah, because it's got the big like frog pope guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like how you knew him, by the way.
His name is Boss Nass.
Boss Nass. Okay, Boss Nass the frog pope. Cool.
Yeah. Frog. I've never heard him described as a frog pope, but that makes perfect sense when you say it.
Yeah. I think if I did one, I think it'd be really cool to do one where there is no floor.
Yeah, that's actually. I mean, that would make perfect sense, really, because like again, they fly. So why would you ever? Yeah.
Like do you know those do you know like a sea arch where it's like the sea there's like the main chunk at the cliff edge, but the sea has like cut out a chunk here, and there's like an arch over onto just like another part of the cliff that's just kind of hanging on there, and it makes this kind of weird like sound. I would love to do like a Beholder layer in a series of like caves and stuff like that, but they're all interjoining sea arches, and all of his stuff is on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then like
it'd be really cool.
The adventurers have to figure out a way of how they can get through here without a floor. Also, it has an anti-magic view, so flyers are going to be a problem.
If you have it, you'll just drop off as soon as it looks at you. So
yeah, that I think that would be really, really challenging, but I also think it'd be really cool. Like you could do, it'd almost be like a. Did you know those? Did you ever play the older God of War games?
No. Actually, I had friends who were really big fans of them, but I never really got into them. The only one I've played is a new one.
Okay, so if you've played a platforming game from the early 2000s, there was always those sections where you usually had something where you could dig into the roof and you had to move along the roof like that, or Crash Bandicoot even. And there would be like sections where you have to like move along holding onto the ceiling. There's no floor, and it's like I'd love to do something like that, where like there is no floor. Maybe it's like a drop into just a massive drop into the ocean or something. You have to like. They have to literally like for once pittance would be incredibly goddamn useful, because like you could like smack them into the roof as you're going along, and people could like it'd literally almost be like going on a mountain climbing expedition to fight this Beholder.
Yeah, it would like that's a really interesting like or like oh Martin, no wait, would that work? One second, I have to check something.
Okay,
this is important. This is very important.
Okay. I'm very curious.
This could be everything.
I'm very curious now.
Okay. No, never mind. I got really excited there because I'm like, oh my god, would this actually be a good use for Tensor's floating disk?
Oh my god. You and that spell. Actually, no, it wouldn't, because the anti-magic
That, and also the fact that like it only hovers 3 feet off the ground.
Oh,
So you could stand on it, but that'd be good if like the floor was like covered in snakes, or if it was like, sorry, my bad.
yeah. Here.
Or like if there was like, that'd be good actually if it was like, think of like the Mummy movies with the scarabs.
Oh man, those are
And just
horrifying.
like this would be really cool for something like that. You could hop up on it and they can't get up onto it or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
Ooh,
There's something I wanted to bring up about
Yeah.
beholders, if I may.
of course, please. Yeah.
Something I really, really love about beholders, and I think it's one of the coolest facets of them as a monster, is how they reproduce. So
How did I not think of this already?
so beholders are obviously far realm creatures. They're aberrations from the far realm. But so the way that they reproduce is that beholders, for beholders, like dreams and reality are like not as different as they are for other creatures. And what can happen when a beholder has a dream, and oftentimes their dreams are paranoid nightmares because they're worried everyone wants to kill them. Having a dream, it can manifest other creatures or it can manifest other beholders. So sometimes a beholder, for example, with the death kiss, which is one of the other variants, if a beholder has a dream where someone's attacking it and it's spilling blood, like it's bleeding from a wound because someone stabbed it or something like that, if that is enough of a distressing nightmare for the beholder to have, their dream might manifest in reality and a death kiss might just appear in reality next to them. I think there's another one for the Goth as well, Gauth. It's like a lower level beholder. I forget what their requirement
I'm not super familiar with that one, but there's a similar thing with I don't know because I ran one recently, but Doomwake giants from Theros. They are giants that are created when, like, the example they give in the book is like, say, like a city in Theros hasn't been following the orders, hasn't been like praising the gods correctly, or has been ignoring the gods, and they are afraid of punishment from the gods. Their own fears and like paranoia and the like threat of the pending vengeance of the gods manifests a Doomwake giant whose sole purpose it is to fulfill those fears.
That's actually pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah. That's the stuff I like now, and that's exactly what I love about beholders. Is like, I just love the concept. By the way, I love the concept of I dreamt about this thing, and because I'm this otherworldly being, that the idea of reality doesn't, the rules of reality don't apply the same to these creatures as they do to people, in your normal D&D material plane. So they might dream that this thing is happening, and all of a sudden it will manifest. That if you extrapolate on that and stretch it out, that doesn't even have to just apply to beholders. Why can't it, like, a beholder dream of an aberrant dragon, and then one is summoned, or an egg is summoned, and the beholder raises it as its own? Or like, what if a beholder, what if you fight a beholder, right? Your character fights a beholder. The beholder narrowly gets away with their life, but it happens just after your warrior knight gets a critical hit on them, and they're like, oh no, I'm going to flee, and they just about make it out alive. What if they have a nightmare about your character, your fighter, and the next time you face off against them, it has, whether intentionally or accidentally, it has spawned aberrant versions of your characters.
Ooh,
so now they look like your characters, but they're a little bit distorted and wrong, because dreams are never like exactly as you remember them.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that looks kind of like me, but it's not 100% right.
That'd be cool.
And like, they can look a little bit like otherworldly. They might have like weird eyes or multiple eyes, and they may have tentacles instead of arms or something like that. But like, that could be a very, very cool encounter if you take your player's stat blocks. And the cool thing is, if you want to do it in such a way that it's challenging or whatever, but like appropriately leveled, you could be like, okay, at level 10 or level 8 we fought the beholder together and we just about beat it, but it escaped. Wait like 3 or 4 levels, but like the beholder knew you guys when you were level 8. So take their level 8 character stat blocks, base the monster stat blocks off of for the encounter off of the level 8 ones, and then have them fight when they're like level 12 against the 4 of them, the 4 party members as aberrant beings and the beholder, because then they'll have gotten more powerful, but their own selves will be as the beholder remembers them again, sort of, because you never quite remember dreams as they were. I think it's a great concept. I think it's a really, really cool concept.
No, it's like I think that's what's so great and so interesting about using stuff like aberrations. The rules of reality, like you said, don't really totally apply to them because they're not technical. Like aberrations have always given me the vibe of like, like it's always like with gods and stuff like that. They choose a form to appear to you in, like with oh yeah, that was it in like Gozer in Ghostbusters, where it's like choose the form of your destroyer.
Oh yeah.
And he picks the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man,
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing where like it's like the dreaming subconscious, the far realm, all that. It's all stuff that actually I thought Matt Mercer applied really well. In the sorry, I got a phone call there. All stuff I thought Matt Mercer applied really, really well in the stuff in campaign 2 with the Cognosa.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, because he did his very first arc in campaign 1 was
Actually,
the Beholder arc.
sorry, I probably should have mentioned that. Is that my very first experience of like proper D&D like was actually a Beholder fight. The very first episode of Critical Role I watched was when they fought Kavarn.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, that's actually pretty cool, because I watched from the start up, but I think that Kavarn fight's great.
I started Craghammer and I really didn't get it, and I just like I think I just didn't, because it kind of picks up halfway in, so I think I skipped forward a few episodes, or I wasn't really paying attention. But like the first one I can really remember in proper detail is the Kavarn episode, or the one just before it when they met Clarota. Actually, no, it's probably the Clarota as well. So I started out with Mindflayers and Beholders as my first real monsters I experienced in D&D. But yeah, and it was like it made an impression, particularly because I really liked how he did that, where it was the Mindflayer, but it was the Beholder dominating a colony of Mindflayers, and
he dominate the Elder Brain, and as a result control the rest of them.
Dominating a colony of Mindflayers. And then as well, it had the Horn of Orcus. So they kill it, and then as it comes back, Zombie Beholder round 2. That was so great. That was such a great shock. Oh man. So yeah, like I know I do feel a little bit of a special connection to Beholders, I suppose. Probably would explain why I like them quite so much.
I like where you were going with the Beholders. And them not viewing reality in the same way.
Yeah,
like because the Far Realm is like not at all a stable place, or at least by our definitions of stable. Like I like to think about when I think about other realms like that, particularly like if you look at like the Feywild and stuff.
Yeah,
the Feywild is a functioning realm.
Oh, yeah.
It's batty, like it's impossible to follow, and it's very confusing, except for the people who live there, because for them that makes perfect sense for the ebb and flow of how life is. But if they were to come to the material plane, then they'd be like, why is everything so rigid and kind of lacking color? And they'd be completely thrown off by that. So you kind of get why Fey beings don't always get the material plane. I like the idea that Beholders who are from the Far Realm travel to the material plane, and maybe like reality warps around them. Like if a Beholder is able to dream, like unconsciously dream things into existence, what's not to say that a Beholder who has is it a delta wave when you're sleeping?
I think so.
What if a Beholder has just like is like sleepwalking, or like has this state of semi-consciousness where it's never quite sleeping?
Are you suggesting a narcoleptic Beholder?
Yeah, something like that.
That would be so cool.
What if it like doesn't have to, like if the Beholder doesn't, it just has the ability to like. Maybe like again, because Beholders are so innately mixed in with dreams. What if things that sometimes the Beholder doesn't even need to think about it or dream it? It just thinks this thing, and because it's like an active delta wave, that thing just manifests.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result, reality around the Beholder could bend and warp and change.
Yeah.
So you might go into what should be a normal cave, kind of like the Cognosa at the end of campaign 2. You might go into what should be a normal cave, and the walls might suddenly be made of like crystal, or they might be made of like flesh, or they could be made of like just like this water like jelly or something, and it's harmless, but it's like, oh, the Beholder dreamt of like jelly once, and now all the walls of the cave are just made of jelly. It could make some really, really creepy, but also kind of maybe even silly encounters as well.
Yeah, I had an idea there actually, because The one thing about beholders though is that they do kind of cap out. Like with dragons you can kind of pace their challenge through the campaign.
Yeah.
Beholders cap out at CR13, which I think is kind of like...
Is that the Death Tyrant?
No, that's... Oh, no, it's just a regular Beholder, CR13.
I think the Death Tyrant might be like 14 or 15.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, because I have it here. But I was just looking at it. It is, yeah, Death Tyrant is CR14.
And actually, I think if you put them in their layer, they're one challenge rating higher.
They are indeed, yeah, because of how layers work in 5e. But the reason I mentioned, but like at the same time, like if your party are level 15, they're gonna wreck the beholder. Like, it's not even gonna be close. Yeah. So I actually just had an idea. I had an idea there for.
Even looking at a Death Tyrant now with 187 hit points, if I put that up against you guys who are currently level 13, even if I went back a few levels now, if you guys were all level 10 and I put you up against that, and it has 187 hit points, you could very nearly knock it out in a round.
Yeah. So reason I bring that up is because, like, say you want to still use beholders because you really like them, but like obviously the party are a bit too high to throw anything at them, and instead of maybe like homebrewing a tougher beholder, what you could do, because I just happened to have the idea there, the beholders are not immune to magical sleep. You could have a villain who captures a beholder and uses sleep and like keeps them imprisoned in like a basement or a dungeon somewhere, and just uses them to make monsters. Like they turn a beholder into a monster factory by keeping it permanently asleep, and it just dreams all these wild aberrations out of its head.
I'm curious now. There's a spell called Dream.
There's Dream and Dream of the Blue Veil.
I'm actually not familiar with Dream and Blue Veil. What's that from?
The spell list when I searched Dream when I was making.
It's in Tasha's.
Yeah, I made when I ran the Theros Giant, the Doomwake Giant, because there's so much to do with dreams. I had his lair be basically like a dreamy starscape kind of galaxy picture, and one of my guys cast Identify on it, and I said it wasn't an actual like spell, but the two closest things were the effects of Dream and Dream of the Blue Veil smashed together.
So I'm just reading the Dream of the Blue Veil one. This interesting cast spell.
It's a very, very interesting spell.
If the spell reaches, so you don't have to 8 willing creatures within range fall unconscious for the duration of the spell and experience visions of another world on the material plane, such as blah blah blah, all different examples. If the spell reaches full duration, the visions conclude with each of you encountering and pulling back a mysterious blue curtain. The spell then ends with you mentally and physically transporting to the world that was in the visions. Interesting. My kind of idea was like, I was thinking like, if you can go into someone's dream, could you have a bunch of different mages basically constantly casting sleep to keep the beholder sedated, and then could you have it so that one person or a couple of people's job is to go into the beholder's mind, navigate its crazy messed up brain, and then try to steer it in certain directions so you control the monsters that it creates as part of the little beholder monster factory.
Yeah, or like you could probably do the same thing a little easier if you just like tortured the crap out of it and then cast sleep on it, and then it would just have nightmares about what just happened to it, and you could specify this is how I plan villains, people. You could just torture the crap out of it and then torture it in a different way each time, so that it dreams of a different thing, so it dreams of a different monster and brings a different kind of aberration in every time.
Yeah, I suppose we're getting way too into the theories of torture here, but I suppose if you were to like do a whole thing where like
if you burn it for a week and send it to sleep every time, it's probably going to dream of something fire related, because you were saying
that's what I was thinking of, because remember in the, I think it's in the last Harry Potter movie, when they go to Gringotts and the dragon is blind. Yes. And they shake the bell, and when you do that, the goblin is Griphook is all like, oh, the dragon's been trained to expect pain when it hears the bell. You could do something like that where you cause it pain and show it images of like griffins, because why not? And then it might dream of some messed up aberrant griffin that it may spawn in its dreams because it's having nightmares about the torture it just went through.
Yeah, bit dark, but like
That's a very dark,
yeah,
that's a very dark turn. But I mean, that could be. And look, if you're dealing with beholders, unless you want to make them very, very silly, if you're
yeah.
dealing with beholders, and they're typically a fairly dark road to go down anyway. They're a scary monster now.
Yeah, they do walk. There's that like real fine line between like super villainy and absolute comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And beholders, you could tread that line pretty faintly. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm. Oh, there's so many cool ideas of beholders now.
I know. I really want to start just writing adventures for beholders. I suppose I'm just trying to think of anything else that we could probably mention. Oh, actually, yeah, we happen to mention that beholders. They are in every single edition of D&D, and I do have the old trusty Forgotten Realms wiki here, and they actually don't really change all that much between the editions, even going all the way back to first edition. So if I'm looking at it here in fifth edition, I think the art is probably the thing that changes the most.
The first edition art is like, I can draw that now, and I'm not an artist.
The first edition art looks like something I would have drawn as a scary monster in the back of my math copy, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, so 5e stats. It's a large creature. It's an aberration. Lawful evil. Challenge rating 13, and it's 14 when it's in its lair. And then its general info is it can fly. It has 360 dark vision. Lives in the underdark, and it has beholder, undercommon, and deep speech. It loves cold climates, and its favorite terrain any space and hills. And then its distinctions are eye raise, charm monster, and flight. So fourth edition then is very similar, except we have aberrant magical beast as its type and its alignment. All of their alignments are evil. Shocker. But then yeah, this one in 4e it has the 360 dark vision to flying. This time it's underdark. The languages are the same as are the climate and terrain. No difference either. It does also retain the eye raise, charm monster, and flight. And it does actually seem to retain those all the way through. I think in every single edition it has the eye raise, the charm monster, and the flight, which I think really helps solidify that iconic status. That like is like regardless what edition of D&D you are playing, you could pull Gary Gygax and like, his spirit out of the ether and be like, "Come on, Gary, we're playing a one shot," and like run a beholder for him, and he would still recognize the beholder, like from first edition. I was trying to listen. I think there was a slightly different in usual. Yeah,
I mean it's cool that they're really recognizable like that, but as we kind of said earlier, there's so many variant types of beholder and even variant rules you can use when deciding which one you put to your game, that even if you had a beholder in your previous campaign, you want to put another one in your next campaign, and some of the same players are there, they're not going to be bored because you can swap out some of the eye rays or the cone, or you could even go completely wild with it and just give it a bunch of really like. I was thinking about this earlier. Sorry, now I'm getting a bit off topic.
No,
but I was thinking like, because of the way they reproduce by having dreams, and then the type of beholder is related to that dream. You could have loads of stuff like that. Like, what if the beholder had like, this would actually work really well with my Gungan bubble layer thing. But what if you had one that like had a dream of drowning? Like, it had a dream it was suffocating and drowning, and then it spawned like some sort of aquatic beholder that can breathe water.
Some sort of combination of like a water weird and a beholder.
Exactly, like maybe it's made of water, or maybe it's a bit like it's similar in style to like what are they called?
Aboleths.
The aboleths. Maybe it's just something aboleth about it, like it has tendrils that come off the back of it, like fins when it like it can maybe move like a you could design like a jellyfish. Ooh. You can make the ball, and then you can have a jellyfish. And at the ends of the jellyfish tendrils could be eyes.
Ooh, okay, yeah. That's pretty cool. I think you're just describing a Death's Embrace from Call of Netherdeep, but...
oh, yeah, maybe. But I think you could do a lot of different stuff like that.
Totally.
Like, what if you had a beholder, like a beholder dreams, it's being attacked by something that's burning it, all of a sudden you have a fiery beholder.
Ooh, actually, I think the underwater beholder would work better if you based it off of an anglerfish, because you could have the eye stalk.
Oh, very much so, actually, yeah. And there's multiple bright glowing eye stalks over its head.
And I like the idea, like, so you can see its teeth, and it's got like multiple eye stalks over its head, and then it opens its mouth, and inside its mouth, behind the teeth, is the big beholder eye.
Oh, I was gonna say it's inside its mouth is like, what's it called? Are they called the deadlights?
Oh yeah, like Pennywise, that'd be sick. Actually, yeah. But yeah, I think that is probably the thing. Probably the coolest thing about the beholder is they are incredibly customizable, and like because you have so much latitude between like your death tyrants or death kisses, You you could really easily make a demonic beholder as well. I think a demonic beholder would be really cool. Like the
Yeah.
I can't remember their exact names, but that's where I've seen beholders before. Dear God, Doom is full of beholders.
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah.
Doom is full of there's the glory kill on the beholder in Doom is Doom guy runs up, grabs his central eye, rips it out, sticks it into his mouth, and then he explodes. It's awesome. But yeah, you could totally geez, I can't remember their name now. If anyone could, if please feel free to leave a comment reminding me what the name of these things are, because I've killed enough of them, I should know.
I think that's actually one thing that Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus did very well, is that it's an adventure that, barring the first 2 chapters, takes place primarily in Hell. The latter 3 chapters are all based in Avernus. It still incorporates other outside. It's not all demons. There's other things in there. There's other people Zariel I think she's technically a fiend on her stat block.
Zariel is there. Tiamat is there.
But there's lots of other stuff. There's loads of times where you'll see that there are monstrosities and there's some aberrations and a bunch of I can't remember off the top of my head now. There's a bunch of stuff though where they're even though this is hell, in the same way that the material plane has people from all other planes passing through it, hell is very much the same. There's an elf, an elf paladin there who was good but lost his mind in hell, and he's undead or something like that. I can't remember. But there's loads of stuff like that where. So yeah, you could even if you're running a campaign similar to that or whatever, there's nothing stopping you from dropping a beholder in, because they're so malleable as a monster that you can be here's a beholder, but they're they can adapt to the environment they're in, or they maybe dream about the environment they're in as a hostile place, accidentally spawn some demonic version of themselves or some aquatic version of themselves, and then that thing kills them in turn or something like that.
An ethereal beholder could be really cool as well, like a ghostly beholder.
Yeah, you kind of only
very cool.
Maybe resistant to a lot of damage and stuff like that.
Yeah, very, very. And but I was thinking more can go invisible, hide in walls,
yeah, a proper ghost. Yeah,
that would be a rough fight.
But Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
Behold. No, that was awesome. I really do love beholders. They're such an interesting and fun villain to play with, particularly because they are your intelligent, charismatic megalomaniac villain. You can really they're 9 out of 10 times if you're gonna do an evil laugh in a D&D campaign, it's a beholder. I feel that applies.
I think they're so
you're
I said,
proper
they're
evil laugh, it's gonna be a beholder.
I feel there's a lot of range in them, not just because you can design them mechanically a lot of different ways, but also because and you can put them in a lot of different environments, but because by their nature you can just with a few adjustments they can be either really creepy and fully scary and evil, or you can push them a little further the other direction and they can be really, really goofy and silly and just a hilarious bad guy to go up against,
Yeah, totally. And they're literally on the cover of the monster manual in 5e. They're that iconic. There are the 3 core books of 5e. You have a dragon on one, a giant on the other, and a beholder on the third.
Yeah. Kind of says it all, really.
Yeah. Also, we've done episodes on dragons and giants.
Oh, nice. I see what you did there.
But yes, Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on the internet mostly on Twitter. At 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. Other than that, you can find me on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Republic.
Awesome. If you're looking to find me on the internet, you can also do so mainly through Twitter. At So Sorry It's Over on Twitter, and also on the Micflayers podcast Twitter account. Wow, that was hard to get out of my mouth. Jesus, stop. I'm just going to stop there.
Just keep going.
You can contact us on Twitter at MicFlayersPod if you have any questions, comments, or memes you want to share. You can also leave a comment below, particularly if you want to tell me what the name of the demon beholder in Doom is. I'd actually really appreciate that. But yes, that'll be a goodbye from me. Goodbye. And a goodbye from Conor.
Yeah, folks.
And we'll see you on the next episode of the MicFlayers podcast. Bye-bye.